Sometimes a movie doesn't have to hit you over the head to make an impact. That's what Train Dreams did for me. Hey, I'm Mike. I studied film, I work in TV, and if you love movies as much as I do, hit that subscribe button and get notified when new content's posted. Train Dreams was written and directed by Clint Bentley, adapted from the Dennis Johnson novella of the same name. It stars Joel Edgerton, who you might recognize from his role as Uncle Owen in the Star Wars prequels, and Felicity Jones as his wife, Gladys. Edgerton plays an early 20th century logger named Robert Grenier who measures time in seasons, builds his own cabin, and works with his hands. He's a simple man, just trying to make enough to provide for his family. He spends months away from home with logging crews and sees things that don't really make sense to him. A Chinese worker is senselessly thrown from a railroad trestle they're constructing. Another is gunned down by a man seeking vengeance for the death of his brother. It's a tough life, one that will eventually take its toll on his body. He befriends an older man, played by William H. Macy. He's like the lumber oracle. He's got some great monologues about how trees are tendrils that we pull from the earth and how all things are connected. That's some good folksy logic right there. But tragedy befalls him too, and none of it really makes sense to Robert. He returns home after a season of logging to find his home destroyed from a wildfire. He holds on to hope that his wife and daughter made it out, but as the years stretch on, his hope fades and he falls into a deep depression. None of it makes sense to Robert. He's not a particularly religious man or an opinionated man. In fact, he's just a quiet man who works hard. His cabin and land have been decimated by fire, and Robert is at his lowest, darkest point. But as the land begins to return to life, Robert too slowly rebuilds. I think the film is trying to tell us that we are connected to the land. When his land is decimated, so too is Robert. And when we begin to see new growth on the charred earth, that's our cue that Robert is ready to, well, not move on, but to rebuild. Robert makes friends with Claire Thompson, a woman from the newly formed Forestry Service. For a man of few words, he reveals to her that he lost his wife and daughter in the fire, and we get a rare glimpse into how someone like Robert deals with heartache. He's like a wounded puppy without the fully formed emotions to properly explain heartache. But she understands. She too lost her husband, and the two share a moment. He's also visited by a friend, Ignatius Jack, the proprietor of the local supply store. He takes an interest in Robert and helps him get back on his feet. There's an interesting message about how men handle their feelings, especially in a time when men didn't talk about their feelings very much. How does someone like Robert deal with the emotions that are clearly wrecking him from the inside? How does he make sense of all the violence he saw on the logging crews and the loss of his wife and daughter? It just doesn't make sense to him. He returns to logging some years later only to find technology has made the logging industry almost unrecognizable. The guys are using chainsaws and steam mules. Time moves around Robert the way a stream moves around a rock. Among the beautiful photography of the natural Idaho landscape, we get shots of streams, so I think there's a message there about change waiting for no man. Time will march on. Wrecked by the loss of his family, Robert becomes a hermit in the forest that the people in town all talk about. We watch as the world moves on without him. Like I said, there isn't anything that really beats you over the head, but I found myself falling into Robert's simple life, his routine, yearning for it almost. I started realizing how much of all of this around us means very little if you don't have your family. I also started to think about how we're all products of our time, caught up in the narrative of current events. Some of us couldn't imagine taking a break from social media or the news cycle. But if we were to be disconnected from it, would that be so bad? The film ends around 1968, and Robert makes it to Spokane, to the big city, and watches John Glenn orbit the Earth on a television in the storefront of a shop. He sees himself in the mirror for the first time in many years, and takes a joyride in a plane. All of these things, the city, outer space, airplanes, are completely foreign to him. He may as well be in outer space himself, visiting a distant planet. He's an astronaut, floating around the alien city, the alien lifestyle all around him. The world has moved on. It no longer needs a man like Robert Grenier. I really enjoyed Train Dreams. It's beautifully shot and contains some amazing, understated performances from William H. Macy, Felicity Jones, and of course Joel Edgerton, who does so much with so little. It's a thoughtful meditation on the fragility of human life and not to take things for granted. Oh, and if you're a Nick Cave fan, hang around for the credits for his song Train Dreams. Nick Cave worked with the film's composer to write the song, and if by that time you haven't cried, the sound of Nick Cave's voice ought to do it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Train Dreams. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this content, please interact with this video. I'd sure appreciate it. As always, film is about community. I'm Mike, and I love movies.